Welcome back to the Can I Be Honest show. We got another full week of things to talk about. So, the U of M Dearborn has some non-people of color cafes and a people of color cafe. We want to talk about that and their apology. Also, we have another assault of deputy in Atlanta area on a black man, and we have some police officers in Los Angeles being ambushed. And these are serious topics. It's the amount of violence that we have, just that we get desensitized to, and that we talk about week after week. A lot of times you can just talk about it like it's something normal. These things are not normal. They're never normal, and it's really with a lot of weight. I think that we need to continue to have these conversations, figure out what is the path forward, what is the way that we can start to behave that creates a difference. Dewan, how are you feeling
Yeah.
this week?
You know, similar to always, right? It's like heavy because of the things that we cover, stuff that we talk about here. But we have to talk about it, right? I wonder if if it is normal, right? Like it's like we don't want it to be normal, but it seems like it happens so often that it seems to be becoming normal. I was sharing with Ralph before you jumped on, Steve, that I was in a meeting Friday, and it's with a group that's focused on highlighting Black women that are doing amazing work, and they were talking about a podcast series that they were getting ready to do, and they were saying, we want to push it back to do it well, and one of the people said something, and what she said, and then the response of the rest of us that were on there just really it hasn't left my mind. She said, we can push it back. It's not like the police are going to stop killing Black people, right? It's not like all of the topics and the craziness is going to go away. We'll be okay. We'll still have plenty to talk about months away from now. And we all kind of like heard what she said and nodded, right? And what she said is problematic, and our response is problematic, which makes me say, man, this stuff shouldn't be normal at all, but it seems to be normal, and we can't embrace it as the norm. We have to do something about it. So I'm with you. I mean, I know that we're got people starting to jump on. So please, like, we're getting ready to go there on some subject matters that we know you guys are interested in. We know you guys have thoughts on. So obviously, start to share with some of your friends, and let's get ready to go there. I mean, no shortage of things to talk about as usual. And if you want to know why, Ralph gonna tell you.
This is America.
I have a dream.
These are animals.
America preaches integration and practices segregation.
Why did you say Mexico?
A rising tide of discontent.
The South will rise again. I have a dream.
We have contrasting visions about what America is.
This is America.
All right, where do you want to start first?
I want to start by letting people know we're going to do things a little bit different today. So we're going to share a link with you guys. If you want to jump on live with us in real time, you can just jump on. We're going to put the link in. You guys can click on the link and jump in with us. Let's start with the one that's closest to home. Let's start and the one that's probably easiest to cover. The piece in Dearborn. So you want to cue it up? You want to let everybody know what we're talking about?
Yeah, I don't know if we have a picture of it or not, but basically, so U of M Dearborn created a couple different cafes. One was a Black, Indigenous, and People of Color cafe, and the other was a non-people of color cafe, like white people. The other one is a cafe for white people. Now, the internet took these little digital notifications, these digital reminders, and they went wild with it. And it's interesting what they did. Part of it was the cafe thing. Well, it's not an actual cafe, okay? This is an event. They created an event for people to actually talk. And I think that's part of why things went the way they did. The the other one, there's a lot of feedback there. There's people who said, man, this makes it seem like even in the way that they phrased it and explained it, even the way the university explained it and said like the white people having a space to be able to talk about race in a way, and people of color having a space to be able to talk about race just freely, safely, etc., to be able to learn, for white people, work on some things, people of color share freely, not have to kind of worry about, using a certain language or having to explain stuff, overly explain things. And people just went wild with it. And they came under heavy attack, and they issued an apology shortly after that. So what are your thoughts on it?
So, I mean, you probably have more experience in joining those things on a college campus than I do, obviously, right? But I would say, when I first read it, and I was talking to a good friend of ours yesterday about it, Quan, and, we were just talking about it, and it's like, he said the same thing I thought. When he read it, he was like, I didn't see anything wrong with it, right? Like, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it. I got a number of friends that are Black that say, look, like white people need to have these conversations together, right? Like some of the folks that have been doing the work and understand at a higher level should be talking to other people and going through some of this stuff together. I mean, I am for like spaces and creating spaces where you can get together with people that have share things in common with you. Like, I'm not opposed to that. So when I heard that it was happening, I think what happened was, I think that, the way it's packaged and the way it's presented, people started to think that it was some type of, like, people were excluded from being able to participate in something that they wanted to participate in. And then, you and I have a mutual friend that said they talked to some folks that when it came to planning this out, there was some Black folks that got together to help them plan it out. So, I think we're so emotional right now, rightfully so. I don't think that we're wrong for being emotional, but I think we're so emotional that it's hard for us to take process information without giving an emotional response right away. I think we feel committed and obligated to, and definitely moved to. So I think that, I would love for them to almost get a reset and a do-over, man, because they were trying to do the work necessary to self-reflect, hopefully, and come out and have some conversations, dialogue similar to what we're trying to do here to figure out what moving forward in a healthy way looks like. So those are some of my thoughts. I get together in diverse groups. I talk to folks from different backgrounds, and I also get with folks that are Black. You know what I mean? I get with have conversations intentionally with Black men. You know what I mean? Yep. And we process things together. We comfort each other. We care for each other. You know what I mean? We understand each other. So I don't think there's like anything wrong with that. And I think that if it's something that ends up being segregation for the sake of excluding people from access to opportunity, resources, and things like that, that's something totally different from some folks getting together saying, hey, we're going to have a powwow, we're going to have a discussion and figure out what it looks like for us to be participants in this space in a healthy way, right? So the other thing, let me share this. We talk about allies, we talk about like wanting to have white allies and challenging folks to participate. We have to be careful not to make it like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, right? Like if we make
one of my biggest concerns with this, yeah.
Yeah, like if we make it a damned if you do, damned if you don't, like people are going to be paralyzed and say, whoa, like let me just back up until I figure out how to do everything exactly right, right? If we're looking for somebody to do everything right all the time, this is not a space that anybody will see benefit in working in. So those are some of my thoughts, man. What you got going on?
Yeah, and Wafa said we should get together, hear each other to learn about our differences and embrace it. And that was actually one of the criticisms that they had. It's like, look, white people need to be in the spaces where people are sharing some things. It was weird. Like one of the guys who's is the leader of organization. He was one of the guys that tweeted some stuff out. It was an Arab American. It was Coalition for Justice. I don't remember the exact name, but that was one of his criticisms. And I think part of the challenge was one, and even U of M, they were like, we're going to continue these dialogues. We're going to try to kind of frame it better and fix up some of this stuff. I'm glad they're doing that. I think when you look at something like this and you just respond without like really kind of digging in, and who digs in? Like that's not
right.
It's like so 1990. You know what I'm saying? Like we do zero. Like I need to respond right now. I need to tweet right now. You know what I'm saying? While it's hot. And I think like just like the lack of relationship that we have, the lack of depth and intimacy that there is in our conversations around stuff like this, I think you're naturally going to run into problems. And so part of the problem here is I think this is actually one conversation that they're going to have. So my assumption is, like, if they're having this, my assumption is they're already thinking about the other things, because this is actually, in my opinion, a bit of a higher level. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is something, like, there's some depth and some thought into doing this. And there are some people, like, not everybody agrees that this is, like, and you see this now, not everybody agrees that this is the way to do it. But I think people that have been in the conversations and trainings and like understand the psychology between like how people share, how people open up, like how to like garner trust and vulnerability and get some like real thoughts and feelings on the table. Like, this is a piece of that recipe. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm going to share where I'm the most comfortable. And all of us are the most comfortable around people that like look and feel like home, look and feel like us. Like that's just the nature of like how humans work. And so we all need to be stretched. We all need to be in different settings. We all need to hear about each other. And we need to be in settings where we can say some things and know like, hopefully nobody's going to jump on me here. Like, I have this question that I really want to ask. I have this thing that like I'm not really sure about, like if it's like if I'm the only one who thinks like this, or I feel a little funny about it, but like, hey, and I'm going to put it out there now, knowing that there's a safe space to do that. And I think there's ways to make safe spaces in mixed environments as well. But I also think both are important. So I think the unfortunate part, like, I would have loved to see U of M Dearborn come out and clarify rather than apologize, because I think when you apologize, then people are like, see, they were wrong, and now they turn their attention, because nobody cares like about the actual program. Like, they just care like about this atrocity that was created. And now that they've solved that and they've put that fire out, now they can go fight more fires. I would have loved to see them come push back and say, look, like, here, let's clarify, like, here's what we're doing. This is one of a number of things. Here's why we're doing it. And even go into psychology, go into a lot of things. I think just doing this, it's, yeah, I'm not a fan of, we're in an apology culture. So
yeah, it's like, it's real simple, right? It's like, you have, in those spaces, you have I used to do it too, right? Like, so it's like, if you get a group of folks that can relate to each other, have similar backgrounds, similar, like lots of things in common, right? It's like if you go to like a drug treatment facility, right? Like, you're going to have folks sharing testimonies. Alcoholics can relate to alcoholics. You know what I'm saying? If you know, it's just like, that's just the way things work. If you're doing an internship of any kind, you want somebody that has come from similar background to you, and it is where you're trying to get. So when you can put together a group of white folk, and you have a wide range of folks experience-wise, some of them may have been where some of them are, and they might be able to speak into that. And I think it just makes sense to, like you said, have a safe space where people feel more comfortable and more inclined to open up a bit, right? So I didn't see anything wrong with it. The one thing that I think really frustrates me in times like this is the people that are pro and for something, they're often a lot less vocal publicly than people that are against, right? Yeah. So like the people that are against, they're gonna get on their keyboards.
But they have everything to lose too.
Yeah, but it's like, I mean, I'm not feeling that. You know what I mean? It's like,
I get it, but like the way our society's set up, the way our culture's set up, is like you can only get canceled. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't gain any ground here.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying like that's where we're at, and it's like I hate it.
Yeah, don't leave me hanging, right? Like if you see me out there and you was working on something with me, and then everybody turns against me, don't leave me hanging like you wasn't out there working with me on it. Like you didn't encourage me and say, hey, this is a good idea. You know what I'm saying?
Try to tell them not to do it. I'm trying to tell them not to do it.
I'm gonna have to snitch on you if you do. I'm gonna be like, yo, somebody was doing this too.
He was part of the brainstorming session.
Exactly. So U of M Dearborn, if y'all are listening and y'all out there and y'all got y'all sleeves rolled up to do some heavy lifting in this work or some light lifting, any lifting, like the Can I Be Honest show encourages you guys to press in, and we salute you, because we definitely need more people that are willing to go there and not just box check, but really make a difference.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I think there's things that can be critiqued about what they did. I think my question is about, and this goes back to what you're saying, is like, look, just having the conversation is a win. Do you really want to like nitpick it? Like, you know what I'm saying? Do you really want to get to the point where like really a lot of programs would have just shut it all down? And I'm glad they're not. But the non-POC thing, which could have been tongue-in-cheek, I don't know. Like, I think it's a stretch to put all non-white people in one group and have them, like, to me, that's a stretch because, like, their experience is so vastly different. You know what I'm saying? And you could make a case either or, but I'm just saying, like, the fact that, like, we want to sit from, Los Angeles, New York, Detroit, whatever, and, speak very authoritatively and strongly into these different conversations, whatever.
No doubt. So what up, Wafa? We see you. Simone, we see you. Brian, what up, though? Thanks for joining in. So we just got finished talking about the U of M Dearborn piece and sharing our thoughts on that. We're getting ready to go to a few more places that are going to be a little bit more emotionally taxing. And challenging, but it's similar space, unfortunately, a space that we have become familiar with and far too accustomed to. I think Ralph has a video of the first one. You want to cue it up, the LA deputies, Steve?
Yeah. If you're watching, we're getting ready to talk about some pretty heavy things, some officers that were ambushed. We would love to get some people on to chat with us. The link we posted already, but you guys can just jump on. You don't have to text any numbers. You just click that link. We'll bring you into the show to talk with us. We're about to cue this up. And also, we'd love to get some more people on here. If you want to share it, that would be fantastic. But Los Angeles, the video is going to, kind of detail for itself. And, this is where we are. In the U.S. So looks like the officers were set up, and this was very calculated. So Ralph, go ahead and roll the video, and then we'll come back on the other side.
Scene in Compton where 2 LA County Sheriff's deputies were shot overnight. A massive search is happening right now for the gunmen who ambushed the pair. Both officers were sworn in only 15 months ago. The incident happened at the Line Metro Station. The deputies, though, are still alive.
Eyewitness News reporter Jade Hernandez live outside of St. Francis Medical Center, where those deputies now fighting for their lives. Jade.
Good morning. We are live at St. Francis Medical Center, and we can show you that there is a heavy law enforcement presence this morning. It's a somber morning. The LA County Sheriff's Department is reeling with what appears to be an unprovoked ambush. 2 deputies shot multiple times. This ambush was caught on Metro Station surveillance video, and it is very difficult to watch. You can see the shooter. He opens fire and runs. Next thing you see, the passenger door flings open and the deputy emerges and stumbles. 2 LA County Sheriff's deputies shot in the head, 1 female deputy, 1 male. Both were rushed into surgery shortly after the shooting as an intense manhunt got underway. The apparent ambush at a Metro Station in Compton happened around 7 o'clock Saturday night while the deputies were sitting in their squad car at the Metro Blue Line station, not far from a sheriff's station in the area. Just hours after the shooter opened fire, the sheriff's department held a press conference.
That was a cowardly act. The two deputies were doing their job, minding their own business and watching out for the safety of the people on the train, and seeing somebody just walk up and just start shooting on them. It pisses me off. It dismays me at the same time, and there's no prettier way to say it.
This is what we know about the deputies this morning. One is being described as a 31-year-old mother of a 6-year-old boy. Her husband came to St. Francis Medical Center here in Linwood last night. The other deputy, 24 years old. And we understand that Sheriff Villanueva swore both of these deputies in just a little more than a year ago. Anyone with any information is being asked to call 323-890-5500 with any information.
Yeah, so I would say, I stand in agreement with the officer that spoke. It's hard to watch that, right? Like it does. It pisses you off. I think, just where we are, right? It's like, not an isolated incident, but definitely like when I hear 24-year-old, when I hear 31-year-old and think about how much life they have in front of them. Think about families that are impacted from them as far as like that love them, that count on them, that need them to pick them up from school. You know what I'm saying? Like the stuff that we just do, like to bring a check home, like all that stuff. It's rough, and we're just in a bad place. And I know that this stuff happens, and I know that, during certain times we see a lot more of this stuff, and I know that we can be manipulated by the media and what have you. I'm aware of all those things, but at the end of the day, like those are real people, and it's rough. So if I'm honest, right, this is the Can I Be Honest show, right? So if I'm honest, like some of my thoughts like scare me, right? Because some of my thoughts are like, when that's a reverse role, what ends up happening is the person that was victimized, we start to learn all kind of dark stuff about them, right? It's like we'll get their rap sheet, you know what I mean? Anything that they've done prior to this, right? Like all kinds of stuff like that. So if I'm being honest, there's a part of me that says, like, yo, like, we're not doing that with them. Like, we're not going back to see if they've done any harm to anybody, like while they were on duty or anything like that, right? And like, I'm not saying that I want us to do that at all. What I'm saying is I want us to stop doing it when it's the roles reversed, right? When we see something that's blatantly like wrong, when we see somebody walk up to a car and open fire on two unexpecting people, like I can say that that's wrong, right? And like my heart goes out for them, to them and their family, and I just would like for us to be able to say that in a unified voice collectively every time we see something wrong. If it's like police officers that are on the bad side, if it's police officers that are on the side of being the victim, right? I just want us to be able to say that, you know what I mean? With a united voice, so yeah, it's hard, man. Like I have people that I'm really close to that are officers, you know what I'm saying? And if that was one of them and I had to like watch this, I'm thinking about the people that know them, that love them, that had to witness what we just witnessed. You know what I mean? It's like if I had to watch that about some of the officers that I know that I'm really close to, yeah, that would be really, really rough, and then thinking about like what does that mean moving forward? Like, right? Like what are the rest of the officers on that force going to be like to deal with for the
Yeah.
average person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like what did
Yeah.
that just set in motion? You know what I'm saying? And we have to understand context, right? It's like, you know, when I see, hear, and think of things, I view them in the context of who I am as a person and my own personal experiences. You know what I mean? So they're the same way as officers. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
they're going to put things in a certain context. You know
Yep.
what I mean? And they're probably going to be on edge a little bit more than they normally are, right? So like, what does that mean for the rest of the folks that they come into contact with and they have to interact with, man? Like, you know, so yeah.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. I don't, and just on a normal basis, I think about that with police officers. It's just like the calls that they get. You know what I'm saying? It's and the things that they respond to, that begins to play into your psyche. So then you have something like this, whether that affects you directly or whether it affects like somebody on your squad, and yeah, that it changes things. I mean, you already know that the job is dangerous. I think this kind of gives this like sense of like when you go home and you're at the dinner table and you're trying to get your kid to eat their meal and they're not because they're picky, because they're being picky. You know what I'm saying? Tonight it feels a little different, you know, than it did yesterday, because you know that, you know, a young lady that you work with is in the hospital and got shot. And so like it just framed life a little bit differently. But you also know that tomorrow you want to come home to deal with your picky eater. You know what I'm saying? Like you want to make it. And so it's just yeah, that stuff like the psychological stuff. And that's why I think police officers like need more of that stuff. And I know there's like there can be a stigma about counseling, there can be a stigma about things, but I think the amount of training that just happens like situationally is pretty intense. And you know, when you look at what happens in the military when you come home, and the people that need to go through a process of deprogramming, and you see like all the stories about like what happens when that doesn't go well, and just the challenges of being in a traumatic environment and then coming home. And I know they're not apples to apples, but it's like the same. Like you go to work and like you're dealing with a lot of trauma, and a lot of that, like, shoot, there's people who lose their lives next to you. There's times when you know, like you're breathing hard because you almost lost your life. And so yeah, this stuff is there's a lot there. And I think the other thing is, yeah, just the bigger picture, you know, getting outside of their families and what that does to their thoughts about, you know, people in general. But like this is, you know, again, just part of a wider tapestry in the U.S. of what's happening. And you see this stuff. You'll see this isn't new either. You know, it's not like this is the first time it's happened to police. But yeah, like in the broader context, like there's just we need to do something different. You know, we need to figure out all the way around how to create better communities, how to have like a healthier way of interacting with each other. And go back to like some of the stuff that you said earlier. It's like sometimes I wonder, is that even possible? You know, on large scales. You know, I know in the micro it is possible. And I know I have to remind myself, like, again, like all of us change, all of us are messed up, all of us like have growth to do. And so like that's part of the conversation. It's like, how do we achieve that growth? You know?
Yeah. And I think the one thing that I do think, if we could just, again, I'll say it again, if we could just in a united voice call out what's wrong, and what's right, and do it quickly, right? Because I think often there's something very basic happening in these conversations. And I think when you hear the Black community crying out Black Lives Matter, part of what they're saying is like, do you know what the F I have to go through? You know what I mean? Like, do you know what I have to go through? Right. And I think that the police officers are saying something very similar, right? It's like, do you know what the F we have to go through? Like every day, like, do you understand? Do you know that? Right. And, you know, when nobody said I don't know what you're going through, but it is effed up, right? When nobody can at least say that, they like, I don't know what it's like to go through it, but I've heard, and it is effed up. Like, that's a start. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of, if we can just get to that point where we agree, you know, what Kathy said, like, yeah, wrong is wrong. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's what I have. If y'all have some more thoughts that y'all want, obviously the comment sections are there. What up, cuz? I see you. James Callbreath is my big cousin, who I've started to look more and more like as I get older. But yeah, if y'all have some more comments, please drop them there. But again, there's a link in the comment section, that StreamYard link. If y'all want to jump on in real time with us, feel free to click on that link and take part of the conversation on here with us. Steve, you got anything else on this subject?
No, I think to your point, I think one of the things that frustrates me about where we are kind of as a nation right now is like there's no room for nuance, and there's no room for like a both and. You're either here or you're here. So if you support this segment, then you respond differently to the police shooting. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, well, you know what I'm saying? Like, and you give all of these like excuses, you give all these qualifications, and you start comparing. It's not as bad as, or if they, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, no, like no, it's wrong. You know what I'm saying? It's wrong. Like, she's a mom, he's a son. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're both humans, and so I think that's like, so, and then be able to turn to the next one, to the police being violent, brutalizing people, and also say that's wrong. Like, we're in this really weird space in the US where like we just can't like do, you know, what my mom said. Just call wrong wrong. Call right right. You know what I'm saying? There's always going to be some things we disagree on. You know, we're going to have different viewpoints. We're going to view certain things as more important than another. But I think we are so concerned with like trying to like protect our own agendas in our own base that we will not step outside of like a certain, like almost every issue divides like straight down the middle. There's a certain set of people that are always going to respond this way to a certain type of issues. There's another set of people that are always going to respond another way. And then if it's a different issue, it's a flip flop. And it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy because like the logic isn't there. The compassion isn't there. Like, you're just like marching down these, like, just the path that's like, it's like following the Pied Piper. You know, it nuts. It absolutely drives me absolutely nuts. It's like, no, take a minute. Like, let's all take a minute, breathe, put ourselves in these shoes, like, and say, hey, like, what is the human thing to do? Like, what does it mean? Like, you know, more and more as I've been thinking about race, it's like it all comes back to basic elements of humanity. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So if I think through that lens and everything, if I'm this police officer, how do I want people to respond? If I'm, you know, if I'm the people that set up the thing at the U of M Dearborn, how do I want people to respond? You know, it's all of this kind of stuff, and then flip it and say, I'm not them, but if I were them and I wanted, like, so that dictates how I respond, how I think, like the level of, like, even if I completely disagree, like, that's going to change the way that, like, would I receive this well? You know, like, is this the way I want to be? You want to rake? And do I want to be raked across the coals, like, of like the national news and internet tweet this, that, and other? Like, who wants to do that? Like, no, you did something stupid. Have I not done something stupid? Like, all of us, like, you know what I'm saying? So
Joy Bobby Orff says the cycles of trauma are very similar in both groups of people. I know that this is a very personal subject matter that hits home for Joy, with her having brothers that are law enforcement. Ron says, it's all about empathy. That seems to be missing. Our in-house trauma specialist, Sarah Ray, dropped a mouthful on us. And man, one of the things I want to say is, like, when you're dealing with like real human life and real human loss, right? Like if I am a family member to like any of these people, right? Like Blake, Floyd, Taylor, one of these officers or anybody, and like you got on social media or you got on like normal media and said something bad about the person that was like hurt, and you didn't have some like empathy, you know what I mean? Like I'm done with you, probably forever. You know what I mean? Like if my loved one is in the hospital or worse, gone forever, under one of these circumstances, and you to make a point to, like you said, like to support your side, like said something negative about them, man, all the stuff that people were saying about Mike Brown when that first video came out, you know what I mean? Before we realized that he did an illegal transaction with the people in the store, but it wasn't him bullying somebody and taking a box of blunts from them. It was actually something that he had like did a transaction for, and it was owed to him based on that transaction. Like all the stuff that people said without us having any footage there about what he did and what he supposedly did. Like I just got so fed up with people saying that stuff about him, and he's not even a family member of mine. You know what I mean? I can imagine what it meant, like what that did to his family. You know what I mean? For people that want to come back. Yeah. So I'll go on a long tangent there. But the point is, like, man, like let's self-reflect. You know what I mean? Even with this, like I said earlier, my mind goes to some unhealthy places. I almost want to say, look, like, what if people were saying this under this circumstance? Just to drive the point home. Not that I don't have empathy, not that I'm not concerned about those two officers. I definitely am. And I will be praying for them and their family members, right? But just to drive a point home and say, look at how this feels or how crazy it sounds, right? When somebody is saying something like this. And that's what we often hear when it's the roles are reversed. But there, we don't want to see anybody out there doing anything crazy to police officers, anybody out there doing anything crazy to anybody. You know, but we also want to have an honest conversation when these things come up. So I know that there's something else that we're going to talk about that's along the same lines.
Yeah.
You want to cue it up?
Yeah, we can roll this film, but you're gonna see news footage of a black man being pulled out of a car, and he's not even the one driving. So go ahead, Ralph. And
it's just a heads up. It's probably going to be some strong language depending on which clip we roll. So excuse us for some of the stronger language. But Ralph, if you're ready, go ahead and fire away with that.
The country tonight, new developments. We first showed you this viral video on Saturday. The Clayton County deputy seen pinning down a man he was trying to detain is now off the job. Sheriff Victor Hill says the deputy was fired for excessive use of force. Family members identified the man in the video as Roderick Walker. He is still in the Clayton County Jail right now. That's where Channel 2's Audrey Washington is. She joins us live. Audrey, supporters of Roderick Walker rallied there today.
Yeah, demonstrators gathered in front of the jail, both in front of the jail and here in front of the sheriff's office, all calling for the immediate release of Roderick Walker. Now, Walker is the man seen in the middle of this now viral video. Walker's attorney says Walker, his girlfriend, and baby were in a car with a friend when deputies stopped the car for a broken taillight. Attorneys say the deputies then asked Walker, who was the passenger in the car, not the driver, for his ID, but Walker instead asked why he had to show any ID. Walker's attorney says next, the deputies demanded Walker out of the car, wrestled with him, and punched him, all while trying to place him under arrest. Today, Sheriff Victor Hill announced that the deputy who punched Walker was terminated for excessive use of force. At a rally today calling for the release of Walker from jail, organizers told me the firing doesn't go far enough.
It wasn't enough because Sheriff Victor Hill could have easily also charged him criminally. He was arrested and told, get out the car when he didn't commit any crime.
What is the basis? Remember, we are not here because of any prior charges, any warrants that my client may have. We are here because he was in a car. They stopped the car for a traffic violation, which my client was not driving in the car.
And in a statement, Sheriff Hill said a signature bond was ordered for Walker, but said Walker has a felony probation warrant out of Fulton County. Now, Walker's attorney disputes that part of the story. I'm working on that for you. I should have it all when I see you right back here tonight for WSB Tonight. Right now, we are live here in Clayton County. Audrey Washington, Channel 2 Action News.
Yeah, so I would say I don't want to try to go into the facts of the case and exactly like what happened, because I think that stuff will continue to unfold, and you take a hard position on something right today based on what's reported, you'll find out that stuff is wrong, right? A day from now. What appears to have happened was somebody was pulled over. He wasn't the driver. I don't know how you go from a broken tail light to like what we just witnessed. And like, there's another video that's a lot more violent than that. I prefer this video just because the other one, like, just it was brutal. It was brutal. It was crazy. And it almost like parts of it to me look like, it looks like if you got two officers there and they're trying to get the dude to do something, it almost looks like their momentum and their wrestling is going to tell the other person that whatever he's trying to do to the guy is not working based on like the resistance that the other cop is giving. Like they had the dude unconscious at one point and they were still like aggressively grabbing his arms, trying to put him behind his back, put him in cuffs and whatnot. And his girlfriend was there screaming, trying to get him to respond, thinking that he was dead. His son was there running around hysterical, and just, yeah, it was a really traumatic experience and one that we've grown accustomed to witnessing. And we've grown accustomed to witnessing it because we have video cameras everywhere now. But for many of us, we've grown accustomed to witnessing stuff like that just because of where we grew up and our like interaction with law enforcement, if not ours, people that we're close to. So, I mean, yeah, I wish I could say that this stuff was just becoming revealed to me because of the video footage, but I've seen this stuff happen too many times, right?
Yeah, I remember actually on the corner on Hazelwood, you know, seeing cops pull a guy. They had him handcuffed already, and he was not. I think he was already in the back seat at one point. I don't know if they pulled him out. They just, I mean, the one guy was just giving it to him, just punching him, uppercut over and over, like in the ribs, over and over and over and over. Because I think the guy was probably creating a bit of a ruckus in the back seat, but like I was just, you know, struck. And this is pre like everybody's got their phone out and it goes straight to, somebody's got it live and it's going straight to wherever. But it definitely left an impact on me. And I think getting back to fundamentals. Okay, what does it mean to protect and serve? And why is it that we've become accustomed to, and for many of us that will look at this kind of stuff and be like, well, you know, they shouldn't resist or whatever. What is it about, and we can look at both sides too. I mean, we can talk about the resisting side too. What is it about us that makes us think that like how we are currently policing does not need to be examined on very, very deep levels? And what's happening now that we're saying, as you point out, because of phones and body cams and that kind of stuff, the stuff that we're being exposed to that's been happening at least as much in the past, if not, who knows, more. Like I would think people would do this less because they know there's more cell phones out. That's just me. You know what I'm saying? And you're starting to see some convictions. You're starting to see some people's lives be ruined. You know, that's just my thought. So yeah, that's the thing. It's like, when are we going to get to the place where, like, as a whole, like, hey, let's look at this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Take
I
a
mean,
deeper look.
I think if we could figure out which car dealerships are selling all the cars with broken tail lights to all the black people, you know what I'm saying? We probably can figure out how to stop some of this stuff, right? It's like, how has this like just become cliche? Like a broken tail light ends up with like something like this happening. I mean, I like to think about like your children watching that happen to you in real time over something that simple. Yeah, I don't know. And then on the flip side, right? Like let's talk about the other side, right? Like, what if they're giving him some instructions and he's not following the instructions, right? It's like, what are they to do under those circumstances? To me, it's always like weird when someone's getting pulled over for a minor fraction where they should just write a ticket and they start IDing everybody, right? It's like in a normal car, like that always seems very extra to me. It sounds like they're fishing. It sounds like you're making assumptions that I am a criminal, right? When I'm a passenger in a vehicle, right? I'm a passenger in a vehicle with a broken tail light, right? So like, why would you want to waste your time, waste my time, and ID everybody else in the car, right? Unless you're making assumptions. And where do those assumptions come from? Do those assumptions come from biases, or do those assumptions just come from good police work? You know what I mean? Like, if I'm in a suburban community and if all the people in the vehicle are white, like, am I going to, for a broken tail light, ask everybody else to identify themselves? If we got any white people on here that have had that experience that are watching right now, please, like, call in, leave me a comment. Like, if you've been in a car where somebody else was pulled over for anything like speeding or anything that wasn't like a crazy, like just outright, like trying to get away from the police or doing something very nefarious, if you were in there and people asked you for like your ID, please, like, jump on and let me know. I just want to know if there's some balance to it, right? Wafa says, if qualified immunity is removed from police officers, we may see less brutality than what we see now. Yeah. And Sarah said, I just don't understand how you can tackle a man, have two men on top of him, and then expect him to do what you're asking, right? It's like, yeah, I don't know either. How's he supposed to follow your instructions? I don't know, right?
I mean, I'm assuming you don't start with two men on top of him, though. You know, I'm assuming you get there because of him not following instructions. That's just me.
Yeah, and I assume he probably does not feel like following instructions because he's tired of people like just invading his rights as a citizen of these great United States of America. You know what I'm saying? He's probably like, I'm a citizen of the greatest country in the world, right? Like, you don't just treat me any kind of way. You know what I mean? He's probably a very proud American that wants some of those rights that we're supposed to be afforded. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, no, I think that goes back to like my thing with police and what I teach my kids is like, you always comply, period. Like, you don't, there is no anything else. You just sort the rest out later. You know, that's how I've always treated the police. At the same time, like, I don't think that negates the importance of the conversation on the flip side. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why are we even having this conversation in the first place? You know what I'm saying? I'm just here as a passenger. You know, and getting to that conversation. And so it is a good question. There's a lot of questions I have about how police operate and you know, and that type of fishing when people are just minding their own business, doing their own thing. And that is beyond, from what I understand, that's beyond, you know, what they're called to do. So I think that in and of itself, like, the framework is a problem in and of itself. And I think a lot of times we don't even question that part. You know what I'm saying? We're just like, so my natural inclination, I know for a fact, like I always comply. Like, but the part about like you now, because I don't want you to give you my ID, I'm not doing anything wrong. You know what I'm saying? I've done nothing wrong. And so there's really, we don't even have anything to talk about. Like, you're here to protect and serve. I am doing nothing wrong. We don't need to have a conversation, period. We just don't. Like, I'm not driving. Like, even if we want to have an issue with the taillight, write a ticket for the taillight. I'm not driving. Even if you write a ticket, like, that's it. Like, that's the end of that conversation. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing more to be just said or done here. And so, you know, that's a problem.
Agreed. Ronald said, I would hate to see any officer ambushed. My professional career that some officers, white, feel deputized to antagonize others, black, because of their job. It removes the human connection and treats situations negatively and turns out bad. Simone said, my brother and I got pulled over some years ago, and the cop asked us where was the weed. She said I laughed. I laughed, I'm assuming, out loud. And she was so surprised. I mean, it's the stupidest thing. I've never smoked weed a day in her life.
Well, that was because you're Jamaican, right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
I'm pretty sure that was the context. And her brother has a very thick Jamaican accent. They didn't believe him also. And I don't even remember if the officers were black or white or whatever. But that, again, like, we go by, of course every Jamaican smokes weed. You know what I'm saying? It's like this, like, we don't even question the stereotypes that we have about people. You know, we've seen enough Bob Marley with weed, Bob Marley, like, that's like the two most prominent things about Jamaica that, like, people know just off rip. And, like, maybe Ocho Rios, that they got the little waterfalls you can climb. Aside from that, you know, and so again, getting back to just training, you know what I'm saying? Just training like that. Like, just not questioning stereotypes, like, in your interactions, like the stuff that you would just say to people. It's very basic, man. Like, that's not gonna work. Like, that would never work in any other, like, in another professional setting for you to say that to somebody.
Right. So. Exactly. And you know, I'd love to think that it was just those officers, right? But, like, if I'm honest and I'm an officer, like, I know the dumb thoughts that I have not being a police officer. I know the stereotypes and crazy stuff that I say in my head to people or about people, right? That I know better than to, like, let it come out of my mouth. So, you know, you give someone badge, gun, authority, then that filter can come off. You know what I mean? And then you put them with, like, in communities where people are underrepresented, may not have, you know, the means to protect themselves legally, you know, like, the gloves just come off, man. And but the point that I'm making is, like, the police officers aren't the only ones that have work to do, right? It's like we all have work to do, like, when it comes to this, right?
Yeah.
So it looks like something's happening where you can't see the link in the comment section. Ralph, can you throw even if you throw the link up on the screen at the lower third, they can't. I don't know if there's going to be a way for them to click on there. And I think Sarah's trying to jump on. But anyway, I think what Joy says is it legal in all states to ask ID from all persons in the car? Yeah, I don't know if we know if it's legal or not. I think the question is, what's the reason, right? Like we do, like, so we don't know if it's legal or not, right? I think that what we're trying to figure out is, when does it happen, right? Like, where does it happen, right? who does it happen to, right? And why, right? It's like if you're stopping somebody because a person had a broken tail light, why does it matter who everybody else is in the vehicle? You know what I mean? It's like, what does that, what does it even, why does it even matter, right? Unless you're assuming that there's a car full of criminals that need to be investigated, right? And then why would you make that assumption, right? And like, where's that coming from, right? And then does that happen in other communities? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I would say growing up, like there was always this thought, like if you have more than 2 people in a car, like as a young, like a late teen or like just young driver, there's a chance you're gonna get pulled over. It's all white kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, because we knew the police profiled. Like that's just like, I wasn't thinking about it in terms of race, but it's just like they know there's a chance you're up to something, because that's how because young kids are always up to something. You know what I'm saying? And so like, that's like, is it true that young people are more likely, like this gets back into the whole, if you look for it, it's there kind of argument. You know what I'm saying? So if you more heavily police certain communities, then obviously those communities are going to have higher stats in crime because there's more police there, like looking around to do stuff. Now, does that necessarily mean that otherwise they'd have less? Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't necessarily know, but I do know, like, if you're stopping more people, you're going to find more stuff. And so I think that's one chicken and egg kind of conversation that can dizzy my head a bit if I start to think about that, because it's not simple. Like, I mean, that's a very simplistic way to present and think about it, but at the same time, things are way more complex than that.
Yeah, definitely. Sarah, I just tried to email you the password. So yeah, Stephen said, he asked the same question. Do the passengers all need to be traveling with ID? Ronald Matten said, approach always determines outcome. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, Ron, but approach always determine outcome. I'm not sure exactly what he means by that. You got any thoughts on what he said there, Steve?
No, I don't. I'm assuming that he's saying if the cop would approach better, like things would have been dealt with better, handled better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we actually should have done our homework a little more. I've seen things where it states like if a cop asks you for an ID, like you are not obliged. That's not like, if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have to give them ID. Period. Mm-hmm. But Joy Bobby asked like a good question, like, is that valid in all states? You know what I'm saying? And so we actually should have done some more research getting into this. That's a good question.
Yeah. Yep. No doubt. Yeah. So I would say, we're going to bring Sarah Ray in real quick. Obviously, we're running close to that time. We want to get Sarah Ray in. And if you were looking to jump on, let us know. We'll figure out how to get you the link as well. I'm not sure why the link didn't show up in the comments, but we'll figure that out before the next show. Sarah, where you at?
I'm here. I'm in the background. Hi.
What's going on? Welcome
home. Back.
Hello. Don't judge me. I'm in my house coat.
So
I was not planning on jumping on, but
it's all good.
I was typing a lot. So I was just thinking when you were talking about experiences with police officers, I'm a white female, and I don't tend to be super comfortable around, men and being by myself or in isolated situations. But I was always raised, if you get lost, find a police officer. Like, I was always taught that police were safe. And I was 32 the first time I was ever pulled over for a traffic violation. And I literally didn't know what to do. And it's because of the fact nobody was ever worried enough about me to tell me how to behave to a police officer, because I was a white woman. And that just really struck me when you were talking, that there was a lot of times in college, because I never drank, so I was always the driver, and we would get stopped at checkpoints, and I would interact with the police officer, and I would do the sobriety eye check thing, and they would figure out that I was stone cold sober, and they'd send me on my way with the 3 drunk students in the back seat who never got IDs checked. You know, nobody ever cared. Nobody ever asked anybody in my passenger seat. And I spent a lot of time with military, and I had a lot of people, you know, big folks and drunk people passed out and puking and everything. And nobody ever cared about any of their IDs. And, you know, when I was 32 and I got pulled over for speeding in the Upper Peninsula, and I told the police officer, I said, I had my hands up, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I don't know what to do. Nobody ever taught me what to do." I think it's because nobody ever worried about me getting hurt. And I think that that's such a stark contrast over if you have, you know, children of color and you're teaching them, okay, you know, like Steve said, like I taught my kids, you just comply. If they ask for ID, you give your ID. And I think about the conversations that we have with children, depending on how they look or where they're raised, and just what differences that is. And it just makes me so sad that there needs to be such a big difference.
Yeah. No, I think about. I think the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air did a masterful job of kind of playing that out, right? Like they had, you know, when I think Will and Carlton were arrested, and you know, Will having a background of growing up in West Philadelphia, and Carlton in
Born and
Bel-Air.
raised.
Yeah, right. And this thing about Carlton is kind of giving the officers the benefit of the doubt and thinking that it was just because, you know, they were doing their jobs. And yeah, you know, it's and Uncle Phil coming in with clout, and then, you know, him coming in with a white dude with clout to pick them up, right? And like their outcome being much different from a lot of people that I know that didn't have an Uncle Phil that was, you know, a judge or a high-powered attorney, you know what I mean? And how you go from showing someone your ID or not really wanting to show them your ID to arrested for, you know, whatever you're arrested for, and then you end up, you know, not being able to get representation, and the amount of people that cop pleas for real simple stuff end up getting a track record built against themselves, and getting all kind of records for really simple stuff that if they were drunk and white in the backseat of your car, Sarah, they just would have made it home, and you would have either let them sleep it out in the car or tucked them in like
Yep.
at the end of an irresponsible night. You know what I mean? So yeah, and I, again, like that doesn't happen all the time to everybody. You know what I mean? Like I do have stories of, you know, flying, doing 90 through Tennessee, headed to Texas, get pulled over by, you know, a state trooper in Tennessee that gave me the benefit of the doubt, had a great conversation with me, and sent me on my way. What up?
So my husband was saying that he, you know, as you saw briefly, he's a very big, hairy guy. He was saying that, you know, when he was in the military, he can't count the number of times that he would get pulled over and he was the drunk guy in the back seat, and somebody would be pulled over and nobody asked for multiple IDs. And we live on the border of California and Mexico. It's like people just kind of, is the person driving sober? Great, carry on.
Yeah.
And it's just such a disparity.
Yeah. Yep. But that's where we are. So we have work to do. Right, obviously, and that doesn't stop. I guess, again, figuring out, for me, it always starts with me, like where am I at on these subjects, and where are my implicit biases, right? The things that I can work on, right? Because if I can be honest, like let somebody else know that, yo, I wrestle with this stuff too. I just address it, right? So it doesn't lie dormant or unchecked and unaddressed. So the more we can be transparent and say, hey, I have really jacked up thoughts about different people groups, you know what I mean, that I need to work on. And there's a work that needs to be done within me. So if you're doing it too, if you're not doing it, great. But if you are, then here's some exercises that I implement to try to get past it and outgrow some of this damage that's been done to me, right? So Sarah, love you. Always thanks for jumping on with us, and we'll see y'all soon, right?
Yep.
Yep. All right. Peace.
All right.
What's your last words, Kato?
That brings us to the end. I think there's a lot to think about. That's one of the things that they're working on. There might be a state that already passed a law like this that they no longer pull people over for broken taillights, and there's a certain set of things that kind of like super minor, just things, traffic violations that they're not going to deal with in that manner anymore. I am curious about that. I do appreciate the fact that like we're starting to rethink some of these things, and I think a lot of the people that are still out marching and the people that are like in the law offices working hard, pen and paper and all that type, and typing, hitting those keys, are working to change some of this stuff. I think on the flip side, you're gonna have people that think like this kind of stuff is going to help catch someone who would have like ended up on the news 2 days later killing somebody. You know what I'm saying? And so I think there's, regardless of color, there's just this thought like you have a certain record or you're wanted for something, like this is a good kind of screening to take. I think so. Like I think that's I think just like keeping that in mind for me is healthy. I think there's a lot to talk about there. So forgive me for bringing that up at the last second, but yeah, man, it's at the end of the day, it's like we need to get to the place where we're looking at consistently in every situation at what's going to, back to what you said. I'm looking at myself first, and I'm also looking at like, how do I want to be treated? That's how I should treat you. And so like your kids, like mi casa es su casa, like your kids are my kids. You know what I'm saying? It's like how I want like this world to be a place where your kids, my kids, her kids, everybody's kids, like everybody like is treated like has an equal chance at everything across the board, and is treated fairly and is like living like everything that this country says that it is that for everybody. You know what I'm saying? And so what work do I need to do to get there? So yeah. That's where I'm at. Yeah.
I would say, I guess the thought that I would leave myself with and share with everybody else. Let's try to practice this week being slow to speak and eager or quick to listen, right? I think that some of the responses that we feel pressured to give based on our emotions or like a conversation that we had where somebody said or did something that annoyed us and we didn't get to say anything back. So we've been longing for that or regretting that, and we played it over in our mind. So when we see it happen on social media or in another space, we're giving somebody else that energy that we really, there's some misplaced aggression, right? And we just long for these opportunities to like represent our side, whatever our side is. I would say I'm going to try to practice being slow to speak and quick to listen and trying to hear what the other person is saying versus like what I'm interpreting it to be based on the context of the way I view the world, and look for opportunities to go deeper with people, give somebody the benefit of the doubt. And if they end up where you assume that they were, then figure out a way to communicate like with them in a way that would be helpful. I shared with a good friend of mine this week that a mutual acquaintance of ours said something that needed to be challenged, and she challenged him. And I when I looked at the challenge, what I shared with her was I thought that she had given him a lot of gold wrapped in thorns, right? And I don't know if he would desire and value the gold enough to sift through the thorns to get to it. So if we have something to offer, say to somebody that's of any benefit to them, let's try to figure out how to wrap it and package it in a way that they might be excited to open it up like a Christmas gift. All right, Ralph, there is going to be something for us to talk about next week, I bet. And Ralph's going to tell you why.
This is America.
I have a dream.
These are animals.
America preaches integration and practices segregation.
Why did you say Mexico?
A rising tide of discontent.
The South will rise again. I have a dream.
We have contrasting visions about what America is.
This is America.